Hello, this is Dama 82, and we are in From the Depths right now. And I just wanted to show off some of the craft here that I plan on using in my Quest for Neater campaign. As you see here, we got quite an array. These are going to be probably used on the Deepwater Guard and to an extent the Onyx Watch. Just want to give you a brief overview of what I got here. Uh, Also, before we get started, just want to let you guys know that just for the sake of simplicity, I want to do this campaign in 2.4.9, so then that way we don't have to worry about any risk of future patches causing issues with craft or campaign craft and so on. Anywho, we're just going to start off here with my little resource platform here. Not a whole lot to it, but doesn't really need a whole lot. As you can see, it's pretty cheap. Call it the Glorious Land Harvester. In case you're not familiar with my content, I tend to name my craft after heavy metal songs, particularly Sabaton. But yeah, it just has a basic refinery on here. I'll just mouse over it here so you can see the stats. Not really special or anything, but it's just going to get us by. I could probably expand upon it even more, but this is just to get us off the ground. I'm probably going to delete the original starting fortress and replace it with this thing. So yeah, that's that. Moving on, we have the USS Batfish. I named this after a World War II submarine that I have taken multiple tours of near Muskogee, Oklahoma. Mostly just a scout submarine. Nothing real special about it. It's fairly quick for a submarine as well. Has some anti-torpedo countermeasure back here. And we have 2 medium-sized torpedoes, just so you can see what they're like, get the stats off of them. Mainly for below surface and anti-surface targets. No land surface capability there, but pretty much scout submarine. Next up, we have the what was this? The Hellrider patrol boat. It has some anti-air capability here with this 54mm APS gun. Uses timed frag, very effective against Deepwater Guard units. If I can find the shell, I will give you the stats. Yes, I am using Deadly Blades to get a little more speed out of it. Let's just shrink all the block. There we go. And here's what the shell looks like. Bring that down to 54 so you can see it better. Now, cool thing about these skimmer tips is they will give you a better speed bonus than using the composite heads. So that's why I went with that. And really, if you're shooting at planes, I don't see any reason why you'd have to worry about your bullets bouncing off the water. This is also equipped with some fairly nasty torpedoes, just so you can have a quick look at them. Very, very simple torpedoes, but they are good for tracking surface targets and underwater targets. And of course, back here we had just a very, very small token missile launcher. Nothing too special about these. Just for some extra anti-surface and anti-air. Engine, I built it myself. Nothing too crazy to be said about it. Just supposed to be fast, lightly armored, and take out a lot of early designs. Pretty good price tag on it. She's pretty quick. And I've been overall pretty happy with it. So, moving on, we next have the Gott mit uns gunboat. This was basically my attempt to make as cheap as possible a combat ship that I thought I could while still keeping it fairly effective. Very small engine. It doesn't need to be anything special. This is just for, well, just driving the boat forward, and I figured it would only be driving these propellers back here, maybe some ammo processors at the very least. So I figured the revs would be extremely low on it, so that's why we got all these superchargers down here. Superchargers are the thing to use if you have an engine that's going to be running at very low RPM. We have some missile launchers in here. Basically, I nicked them off of Razul. Very, very competent FTD player. These are some of the best missiles that I have ever used. And I use them for a whole lot of other applications. So, just so you can have a quick look over, see what they're like. Also, we got some countermeasures here. I've been trying to give a lot of my lightcraft countermeasures. As you can see, I got them over there on the torpedo boat as well, or the patrol boat. Just some token anti-air here in the form of a octuple barreled autocannon. And here for the main gun, we have a 400mm APS gun. This thing is very, very nasty. You can see it's got pretty good shell speed. Uses a hash round. Let me find the shell for you guys so you can have a better look. And here are the stats for it. But yeah, very, very simple craft. Very, very cheap. Price tag on it I thought was a little on the high side, but this is mostly made out of wood and stone. Basically, just use the only metal parts here just protect the AI and I believe the ammo. So yeah, not a whole lot to that. Mostly going to be anti-air, anti-surface. And over here we got my Corvette. Smoking Snake Corvette. Of course named after the Sabaton album's Smoking Snakes. History behind it is very interesting. If you haven't looked it up, you might want to check it out. Good stuff. Anyway, got a couple of octuple simple weapon systems. We have ourselves here the 400mm cannon, very simple and very similar to the other designs. Uses the same shell. And yes, it is using Daddy Blades. Try to get a little extra speed boost out of it. But overall, very fast craft. Let's see here, 21 meters a second. I usually try to shoot for around 20-ish. And we got here some torpedoes, pretty standard to what I usually use here. Just so you can see the stats on it there. Of course, has some countermeasures here, flares, and radar decoy. Overall, a fairly capable craft. Again, very fast. So now we're going to move on to the aircraft. Here I have the, I believe it's the Metal Ripper. This thing is essentially a fighter bomber. Let's just bring up the stats here. As you can see, it's a very, very cheap flyer, less than 8K resources. it's very capable too. It will go toe to toe with a lot of deep water guard aircraft designs, and it has a very large gun to attack ground targets with. So yeah, I think this will do pretty good pull and double duty. But let's just shrink the blocks so you can have a look at the insides here. Not a whole lot to this main gun here. It's just a 333 Hesh. Works excellent in Ashes of the Empire as an anti-tank weapon. But yeah, that's the shell right there. Again, 333, so I can just... Oh, that's going to drive me nuts. Okay, here we go. Just so you can see what the shell looks like. Again, very, very simple. It's not meant to go very fast. I am completely fine with it being a slow shell because this plane is going to get very, very close before it starts popping off shots. Before the APS update, it is able to get about 3 or 4 shots off on one strafing run. And it's got some autocannons here. I originally started with the 30mm, but they just didn't seem like they're doing enough damage. So I've upgraded them ever since to the 60mm, and they've been doing very, very good work. Also, something interesting about this plane is the landing gear here. It will actually deploy when it's about 20 meters above the ground. So yeah, moving on. We have the Richthofen, which of course is a reference to the Red Baron, which is another Sabaton song, of course. So let's have a quick look at the insides of it. As you can see, there is a whole hell of a lot that is packed into this very, very small design. This is essentially a attack plane. I made the wings out of appliques, and I've used mimic blocks to try to give it just a little bit more shaping. The missiles themselves are completely hidden as best as I could, but yeah, they launch straight out of the front of the wings here. Fairly capable flyer. I've seen it take out Kalmars in a single run. Been very happy with the design. It's actually a super fun build too. Anyway, next here we have kind of a hybrid of the project me and Ion Mark III went back and forth on. I made the original hull of the aircraft, and he just kind of been building upon it. He upgraded the engines for me and the sensors, and I went and changed some of the internals around and made it into a gunship that fires a 333 Hesh, very similar to what the Metal Ripper earlier I showed you does. I think it's the same shell. Yes, the exact same shell. And this right here is essentially a belt blaster. Just so I can give you the stats on the gun here. It's just meant to circle its target and just pelt the ever-living crap out of it with 333 Hesh. Actually, this one's a little different. I take that back. It's a squash head with a base bleeder. Yeah, my mistake. I probably should have mentioned that. But yeah, this will still do a whole heck of a lot of damage. I think I was trying to go for a higher muzzle velocity now that I think about it. Had some mixed results with this one. I might only use like 1 or 2 of them, but I think it gets Onyx Watch. It'll do very well. Mid-game probably not so much because they'll have much better anti-air capability. Anyway, that is... I'm sorry, I forgot to give you all the... this here is the spooky 400 mil? That should be 333. I'll change that. But anyway, yeah, this is the spooky Hesh Belt Blaster. Could have sworn I had that set for 333. Oh, no, my mistake. It's 400 millimeter. Get to building so many APS guns, you forget which one's which. Anyway, yeah, that is the spooky gunship. Something that I have been seriously considering, though, is using it as a resource hauler. Gets somewhat decent speed, 57 meters a second, so it might be good for using to haul around fuel and such. We'll see. Won't be too hard to do, just have to get all the cannons and sensors and such, and just load it up with fuel. Anyway, moving on. We have here the a torpedo bomber plane I made. I think at a pinch it could be easily refitted to be a fighter as well. I call it the Osprey torpedo bomber. Very good speed considering it is not custom. It doesn't have any custom jet engine at all. It just these three large jet thrusters here in the back. And it doesn't have any anti-missile decoys, but for early game stuff, it dodges fire pretty well, so it didn't really feel like it was necessary. This will probably do very well against Deepwater Guard and Onyx Watch designs. Of course, we have torpedoes for it. Very short-range torpedoes, very simple torpedoes. They will be good against surface and underwater targets. Of course, if there's anything on land that's going to have difficulty with it. This would also be very simple to convert over to dropping bombs or missiles or whatnot have you. I actually originally developed this to be a bomber for Ashes of the Empire, and it just worked so well I went and turned it into a torpedo bomber. Yeah, very, very good craft. Actually, Heitzmeister, he's borrowed the airframe and has made some very interesting designs out of it. Have to check him out sometime. And next here we have just a very, very, very simple spy satellite. 7734, of course, a Sabaton song, which is actually a cover of another performer. But yeah, it's just a very simple spy satellite. It just goes straight up. And it'll hover around 3,000 meters and just stay there. I just wanted to make it as cheap as I possibly could. I think, goal accomplished. 27 meters a second, that's fast enough to outrun most campaign craft, except for aircraft, of course. So yeah, that's that. And lastly here is something that I've spent a lot of time on. I call it the White Death, which is essentially a sniper hovercraft. Let me just give you the stats on it here. Very, very cheap and very, very dodgy. I've equipped this with ACBs to make it to where it will change its distance and altitude constantly. So it's very, very hard to target with CRAM or APS. Also, it is equipped with decoys, both flares and radar, I believe. Very, very efficient craft. Very, very stable. I've seen about 5 of these take on a bulwark and sink it. Of course, bulwark, it's just going to sit there underneath the surface of the water, and you won't be able to do much more beyond that because you need torpedoes at that point. But anyway, details. So let's just show you guys the gun. It is a 400 millimeter that uses 4-meter Hesh rounds. Very nasty. Works very well in Ashes of the Empire too. I could probably make a small fleet of these and be able to take on most Onyx Watch designs, if I'm to be honest. Iron Mark III made a somewhat upgraded variant of this that I'll probably use later in the campaign. But let's give you guys a quick look at the internals here. A very, very compact design. I have all the ammo up front here, and that is being protected by big old chunks of heavy armor. Here is the rear of it, just a very, very efficient fuel engine. Of course, all the ACBs and bits and gubbins back here to make it work right. And there's the decoy deployer. Probably wondering why I bothered putting the AI up here. Well, it's got some pretty decent armor in front of it, plus some pretty good shields, so I'm not too worried about it dying either, considering the fact that it's a very, very cheap craft and it dodges fire very, very well. So yeah, that is these are going to be the starting craft that I'll probably be using for my FTD playthrough of Quest for Neater. I'll probably start recording that next week. Just want to do an announcement video and give you kind of a brief overview of what kind of craft I intend on using. I do have a destroyer that is currently in the works, but it's probably not ready for YouTube just yet. I'll be showing that one off in a future video, though. Anyway, again, this has been Dama.82, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. You all have yourselves a hell of a day, and take care. Bye.